Hey y'all, welcome back to a new video. So if you saw my Beautylish unboxing video, you'll have seen that I got the Natasha Denona Roxa palette. This is a palette that, 4 or 5 years ago, I would have loved. However, my tastes have grown and changed, but I thought I would give it a try anyway, see what I can do with it, test the formula, see how they layer. And I have some opinions. I'm pretty sure I know how I feel about it. That being said, we are going to do one, maybe two eye looks. I could split my face in half and do one on one eye and one on another. So if you are not familiar, the Roxa palette is a Natasha Denona 15, yes, I can count, 15 pan palette. I believe these MSRP for $69, which is not cheap. The pans are all removable, so there's these little dots, these little holes in the back. Take a safety pin or a paper clip and you just pop them out, or if you have a small depotting magnet, you can just lift the pans out. That is one of my absolute favorite features that Natasha Denona presents in her palettes. I have the My Dream palette. And honestly, I adore this palette. I haven't really talked about it much on camera. Maybe I should do another video. But this I love. Now, upon this palette's released, my initial impression, oh my God, that is so much purple. And look, I'm a purple person. I love purple. I have green eyes. Purple really does complement my green eyes, but nonetheless, purples are very hard to formulate. Because of the combination of pigment, I think it dries out a lot of the binders. So it's very common that you'll get a palette that has a purple and they're just not what you want. They're not as creamy, they're not as smooth. And we're actually going to play with a couple of those today. So in order to set this palette up for its absolute best success, I'm using my MAC Paint Pot eyeshadow primer. I'm going to zoom y'all in so you can actually see what's going on in my eyes. We're going to come in close. We're going to come in close. So y'all are zoomed in. I have just a concealer brush here. And this is a MAC Paint Pot in Painterly. I've had this for a long time and it still does the job. I do prefer using this with a brush and then like just blending the edges with my fingers. I feel like I get a better application that way. So yeah, I gave this palette a really hard, I put it through its paces yesterday. And by the time I was done, I had some pretty well-rounded feelings. I am not going to swatch this. I will put in swatch photos from the brand, but I just don't feel like swatching it because some of these stain. Unfortunately, I was able to clean my lids off pretty well. So when I open this palette up, the first thing I'm looking for is something to work into my crease or to raise my brow bone to bring that forward instead of putting a dark in the crease. And I will put an image of the palette right here so y'all can see what I'm looking at. It's just going to be truer to life and it's going to be a little easier. So right here in my hot little hand, I have all of the brushes that I used yesterday. Some of these worked really well. Even the synthetic worked pretty nicely. So these are what we're going to use to put it through its paces today. And I normally start with a Rephr 14. So this is a small but nicely sized brush with a little bit of movement and longer bristles. So we're going to go into the taupe shade of here. I don't know what shade I'm using. I'm using the taupe and I'm going to go in with the Rephr 14. So these are not terribly powdery. I don't get a whole lot coming off the bristles, but again, this is a natural fiber brush. So natural fiber bristles tend to have more grip, whereas synthetic bristles are plastic. So they have a very smooth surface versus a textured surface. I'm just going to dip back into that shade. I'm not going to tap any off. I'm just trying to create some depth, some contrast, if you will. All right, so to me, that does not look taupe. It looks muddy. On me, it looks like a healing bruise. That being said, I can fill in the gaps. So I'm going to use this middle purple. I'm going to use that middle purple on the bottom. I believe it's violet. Violet, not violent. I'm going to bring that up over the crease just a smidge. So the issues that I had overall were with the mattes. Normally, I like Natasha Denona's matte formula. I have a bunch of her mattes that I've kept from other palettes, but this formulation, like, the mattes are okay. They do take some building, but they're also weird. I don't know if I like the way that they sit. It feels like I went over my brow bone with a purple highlighter marker, like the really intense like highlighters that you have the school supplies. And to demonstrate, we'll go into the lightest purple, which is called Sweet Pea. Do I have the box? Does the box have the names on it? It does, but it's even more illegible. I'm going to do this over here so you can really see it on clean skin. Look, you can make any color work against your skin by putting something relative next to it. So if I really wanted this to work, I would find a blush. I'm thinking Magnetic Mauve from Make Beauty. Yeah, Magnetic Mauve from Make Beauty could help balance this out. But if we're looking at a 15 pan palette as a 15 pan palette, we should have everything we need in there to create something that works. Maybe that's just me. All right, so this one doesn't have Sweet Pea at all. There's not a whole lot of shade difference between that's Sweet Pea. It's got a lot of white in it. Like if you have darker skin, this shade is just gonna look like ash. It's really sheer on my skin, but it's got so much white backing. And Violet doesn't have the white backing, but it's still just, I don't think if you have darker skin, this palette is going to work. I could very much be wrong on that. I have no illusions of the fact that I speak for people with darker skin. All right, we're gonna go into Jacaranda, which, like, look, is this one. I love the shade name. I learned about jacarandas from Encanto. They are a Colombian flower. They're really pretty. However, I think this shadow does them a massive disservice. And I'll use it on something fluffy and then we'll use something a little less fluffy. And I have used this on its own. I've used it with a primer. I've used it without a primer. And I don't like it. You can see it's gathering in my lid lines. Like really noticeably. It's not blending out. That's like the smoothest I've gotten it to look. Let me grab my new Sonia G brush. And we'll go back into that shadow. and see what we can do. So that helped it layer, but it's not blending. It's not blending. Now, if I was working with this palette and I would go into a pigmented powder. So this is the Make Beauty, I don't remember what it's called because the label's worn off. This is the powder from Make Beauty. It's the most pigmented powder that I own. And I'm gonna take a fluffier brush. This is synthetic. And see if that will help move and blend that shade. That shade is a standout. It's the only like cool toned matte that I would be comfortable starting with that isn't like super dark. The others are just a little lighter or pink. We'll look at the pink ones in a minute. But yeah, using a setting powder can help something like this blend, but it's also kind of just blending away. It does not have the impact that it had when I put it on because blending it literally just dissipates the color. All right, let's talk about some of these pink shades. So this shade that looks like it's going to be a nice peachy, warm, yeah, we'll just go in with a synthetic brush and see what it does. So dibby dab. I am going to tap this one off because it's pretty pigmented. So we're going to do it on this side. I can't really see what I'm doing, but we'll figure it out. So yeah, this is something I would take up in the crease and like if I'm doing a look from this palette, I'm not going for subtlety. That right there is the sticking point. This is not a subtle palette. There are shimmers that are beautiful and can be layered over other things. Maybe we will reset and play with trying to get this palette to work with some subtlety. So I'm going over. I always take my crease shade up higher, especially on the edge, because it helps open my eyes, especially my left eye, because you can see that my right eye has this like natural uplift and my left eye doesn't. So I really do try to bring the shadow up past my crease. That actually went on really nicely, and even with a synthetic brush, it blends. I'm not saying all the mattes in this palette are bad. I'm saying I don't like Jacaranda. I don't like that shade. It just doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything. It's a standout, but in a bad way. Not great. All right. So we're going to use Eclipse, which is this really deep purple. I'm not going to use it on synthetic. I'm actually going to put it on with this. This is a Rougher 28. It's a small flat brush. I haven't used this with the darker shades, so we're experimenting. So on the right, I guess we're doing like the cool toned purple. On the left, we're trying to do like a warmer pink. That didn't work at all. Okay. Let's go back to that Rougher 14. See what that does. Go back into Eclipse. Now, I used this shade yesterday and I didn't have a lot of trouble with it. I also made a discovery, and I don't know. If you have this palette and you're trying desperately to make it work, I discovered if you put one of the shimmers down first. So we're going like full purple. We'll go into this purple. I think this is Concord. We'll see what fingers do. They apply a nice thin layer. And you know what? I like this purple shimmer. I really do. It's a good color to really make my green eyes pop. This is a synthetic Luxie brush, Luxie. I love this brush. I want this in all of the shapes and sizes and fiber textures. It's flat, but it's also pointed and angular. And it's so good for getting in little corners, and it holds on to shadow really beautifully. I like that I can pinpoint blend with it. I'm getting so much fallout. So much. It feels like I've just got powder raining on my face. And I'm only wearing I'm wearing the Ritual Defeat Concealer, which I haven't talked about yet, and the Merit Brow. And then I've got a bit of the Merit Lip Gloss on. So there you see, it's like, I'm not trying to make this look bad. I'm really not. I am trying to get like a decent purple smoky eye, which is traditionally a matte, but I want something different. Oh, you know what? I want to find one of those little stubby guys because I didn't use those yesterday and it might be a good time to do that. So we're calling in some backup. There we go. So I pulled 3 brushes out of the bullpen. Okay, I just made a sports analogy. I don't make sports analogies, not usually. So I have a Rephr 12, which is this short, stubby. I love this for shimmers because you can really be careful with placement. We then have the 26. This one's very dirty, but it's a pointed, this is essentially a very large pencil brush. Fabulous. And then the 13, which is like the 14, but it's just less, the bristles are not quite as long. So we'll do some side by side. So you see that this has a blunt tip where this one's got a little bit more mobility. So the one I wanted for this shimmer is the little stubby 12. We're going to go back into Concord. And yesterday I was able to get like a really nice shape just using this. And then using some powder to clean it up. It does create a really nice shade on the eyes. Shade, yes, is shadow. So you would hope that it creates shade. So again, the problems that I have with these is that when you blend them out, it's not like it sticks around and is like, okay, we're just going to become a softer version. No, it just blends away. And in some cases, that can be good. I'm just using my powder to clean up the area around and underneath that eye. I don't have any powder on my face. Maybe I should, but that is a purple look. It's not great. It's also not terrible. But let's focus on this side. All right, we're gonna go into this second pink shade. I'm gonna go into that. Look at that. That is pink. So I'm gonna do my little dibby dab trick where I dibby dab into the lid. That's why I left the protector on, because I have a feeling this palette's gonna go up for sale. So I'm just gonna paint. Yes, I'm just gonna put that all over the lid because why not? I wonder where Natasha Denona is getting her advice on like what palettes people want, or if she's just like throwing stuff at the wall to see what fits, see what sticks. Now, this is, what is this? This is a Wayne Goss 18. It's just a basic crease blending brush. It's not doing much. Let's give this synthetic guy a go, see what happens. I realize I'm using fluffy brushes. But I honestly think, like, applying a basic matte like this in the way I'm doing, you should be able to do it with a synthetic or a natural hairbrush. Not seeing a whole lot of like blending. It's just, where's the 26? We're gonna use the 26. I'm gonna use it with a little bit of this powder, a little bit of my face powder. It'll open. This is a brand new pan. My other pan, I had hit pan, and then I have all my makeup on a cart next to me, and I had to move it because my aunt was here. And I had to turn my filming space back into my guest room, and the powder had just a ring around the outside, and it was fragile and it shattered. But I had already bought a backup pan. All right, so you can see now, like, they do blend-ish. They leave behind a trail. Now, I have done a little cleaning up in the past. So the last time I did this, I cleaned up with a little bit of canvas from Hindash. This is his matte color fluid. We'll see what that will do if I take just the smallest bit on my finger and then use it up here to kind of blend this and clean it up. I mean, that's not bad, but I don't think you should have to put in this much work. So I am going to dupe this palette. I'm going to go through my singles and my eyeshadows and see what I have that would work instead of this. And if I wanted something darker than what I have right here, it's not possible. Not with this palette, because that's the deepest shade and it is a cool toned purple. So we're going to put it in the outer corner because that's what you're supposed to do with a dark purple. I have a feeling that this palette is not intended to be intentional. It's intended to be something that you buy because, oh my god, I love purple eyeshadow and it's Natasha Denona. And you get people who are collectors and people who love colorful eyeshadow. And I don't think that's a problem, but the problem comes in when the shadow doesn't work. When you're asking your customer to pay $69 for a palette and the shadows, look at that, it is not moving. Synthetic brush, I use my primer, I use some powder. I just feel like I've got this huge stamp in my outer corner and it doesn't want to move. It is just, do y'all see that? It's not moving. It's very stampy. Very, very stampy. So we're going to play with some more of these shimmers. I put the darkest shimmer on already on my right eye, but I do have some that I think that I know will layer. So the first shadow I touched in this palette was this center shade. You know, it's this icy blue and purple swirl. I was like, all right, that's basically going to be gray. And it's a lavender gray. Now, I'm not talking about this palette being flattering or like somebody's everyday neutral. No, it is a palette that you play with if you're going out, But nonetheless, it should have shades that you can use on the daily. Don't make you look sick. So I actually like the way that that shines on top of that purple shimmer. It's really pretty. All right, where are we going next? Well, we've got a pink eye, so let's use this pink shimmer. I'm not such a fan of this shadow. I feel like it's very thin and it doesn't build the way I would like it to. Even on a finger, we'll use that stubby guy again, see what that does, and go from there. I don't know. How do y'all feel about that? I am not loving this outer corner BS. I don't know. It's not rocking my world. Let me put it that way. I think she has better formulas. I think she even has these shades in other palettes that are better. She has the Love palette. She has the, what was it, the Retro palette. Like, and the Love palette is kind of the same concept. It's purples and pinks, but it's not nearly, well, I've never used that palette. I'm just wondering about the utility of this palette compared to some of the others. Like if you have the Love palette, if you have the Retro, if you have the Lila palette, you have shades like this. So I don't necessarily think that this is going to be a runaway smash. So this is Regal. It's very white and bright. And I realize we're layering things. Okay, that like the shimmers in this palette, for the most part, are really nice. They're smooth, they're even, they lay down with a finger, they lay down with a brush. They've got this nice amount of reflectivity, iridescence, all of that good stuff. I mean, that right there is pretty. You could probably do a basic eye look with some of these shimmers, but again, not terribly impressed. This is the first shade, Dixie. Yeah, I'm just layering them on top of each other because I want to see how bright they can be and how they work together. All right, well, we're past the point where we can see whether or not the mattes are going to blend and if these shimmers work on top of each other. So I'm going to take a gigantic brush. I'm going to go in with this Refer 200. Nope, 22. And we're just going to swirl it in this pan of powder. And I'm going to powder my entire face. Even though I don't have product on my whole face, we'll powder my entire face. And then we will face swatch these over real human skin. I just want to see how these react with my skin and whether or not you can see them, because I don't think I've put all of these on individually, and I think that's an important test. Do I want to do them by finger or with a brush? I think we might start with fingers. We got Dixie. The Dixie is very fine, very sheer. It's a pink with a blue reflect. And then we're just going to do this all with my hands. This is Jacaranda. So you can see it goes down, but even on top of powder, it's patchy. It is patchy. Next shade is Fluffer. So it's got a little more backing to it than that first shade. I hate this. So this is Phoebe. It is a light purpley taupe. We then have Regal. So in my estimation, these shimmers are all going to read the same on the eyes. They really are. We're going into that darkest purple, which is Eclipse. And you can see how it does the same thing as this one, where it just doesn't want to blend. Next one is Stargirl. It's this iridescent. It's different. It's different from the others. Now we've got that middle blue purple shade, which is called Bolt. I also think this is that cream to powder formula. It feels not so great to dip into. It feels really weird and squishy. Doesn't feel like it's going to have a lot of tenacity. We've got Heather. Again, really pretty, but even over powder, this is not like a setting spray or a concealer. It's just face powder, and it doesn't want to blend. This is Cerise, Cerise. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. It'll go right down the nose. I'm going to the gym after this, and I'm not going to wash my face. No, I'm going to wash my face. All right, so those are the first two rows. You can see the shimmers, they're fine. They're fine. The mattes, on the other hand, so Sweet Pea, which is like white backed. I don't love it. Heather, which is probably my favorite shade in the palette. Because it does have some presence and it builds up. And it's got this really pretty blue shift. I do very much like that shade. This is velour, it's not velvet. But I'll tell you, that goes on and it just blends itself away. The pink shimmer at the bottom, why do I keep turning my head that way? Here's Brink. Like I said, I think it's a little thin. I don't think it really has the same presence as something like Orchid. What am I? Oh, I'm building up this pink swatch. Yeah, you can't really build it much past that. And when you're working with these mattes that also like kind of fluff away, you're not getting anything with impact. And the last shade is Orchid. So I am not going to be keeping this palette. You can, that one, like you can see the feathering and the stamping. It stamps and then does not want to blend. So unless you're layering it in just like impossibly thin layers on top of maybe a shimmer or working something like that into the matte, it's not going to function. It's not going to function the way you want it to. And that makes me really, really sad. I'm going to turn my light up and see if maybe that, oh, that's just blowing stuff out. So that is with just ambient daylight and a lamp in the corner of the room. So it's not like I am intentionally low lighting these or setting them up to fail. I want to like the stuff that Natasha Denona is bringing out, but I feel like maybe 1 in 5 palettes is a hit. I don't think that that applies to this. Now, there is a certain customer that is going to really enjoy this. What I do love is this outer packaging. It feels lovely. It's also got this like iridescent multi-chrome shift to the top that's really pretty. It feels nice in the hand. It feels nice and sturdy. It's Natasha Denona packaging, and her packaging is usually really good. Okay, so I think what we're learning is that by putting down the powder first, they don't stain as badly. So, final thoughts. Do I think this palette is worth $69? The quality is mid at best. I would definitely rank this in like the lower tier of the Natasha Denona palettes that I have tried. So in the past, I have had the Sahara palette, which was all matte. I've had the gold, I've had the bronze, I had the Lila palette. The retro came through my hands. I think somebody, oh, I placed an order and they sent me the wrong palette. So I was at least able to touch it. And I had the same problem with the Sunrise palette. I've also had like the minis. I've had the coral. I've had the cranberry, the peak, which was sent out in a BoxyCharm. So I have a fair amount of experience with Natasha Denona's formulas. And I don't think that this palette is living up to the standards that she has set for herself. I'm just not here for it. It's not the color story. The color story is beautiful and you could really make some fun looks, but you have to be willing to compromise. You have to be fussy, eye primer or no primer, powder, fluffy brushes, flat brushes. Like, I just want my eyeshadow to be fun and easy, and I don't think it is. I don't think this is it. So, there you have it, friends. That is a testing review of the Natasha Denona Roxa palette. If you got this palette, let me know what you think, because maybe I'm wrong about how to use these shadows. I don't think I am. I just don't think I am. With that being said, thank you for being here. Thank you for spending this time with me. I really do enjoy making these videos, and I love that people are watching and enjoying them. So I hope you are taking care of yourself, so you can take care of each other, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye, friends.